webinar is now streaming live.
No, it is. No, it should not.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Well, welcome everybody. My name is David Piatek, and I have Lourdes Fernando here with me. Welcome to VA Housing Education presentation on mastering the home selling process. So you guys are in for a treat. We get a lot of questions from people across the country. I have a home. I might have a low rate. I'm thinking about selling, or should I keep my property, rent it out, and then use my VA home loan benefits again? But there's a lot of information that you need to know about that, because there's a lot of aspects that a lot of people just don't think about. So Lourdes is a resident expert in real estate, also an Army veteran, also currently serving the Army National Guard. So we have an understanding of what military members go through in that process, no matter where they're buying in the country. So a couple of things that we're going to go over today is, one, we're going to go over what the current market stats look like, right? We're going to talk about Chicagoland a little bit. We're also going to talk about it from a national level. We're going to walk through what the selling process looks like. We're going to talk about staging tips. Staging is where you put your home in a manner that people like it, right? So there's a lot that goes behind that. And then we're also going to talk about what repairs actually add value. Because Lourdes, I'm sure people are like, well, hey, I'm going to add an outdoor barbecue. Is that going to add $30,000 in value? Right? Not necessarily. So we're going to talk through those things that actually have an effect on the value of your property. Because if you're putting $1 in, are you going to get $1 out, or are you going to get $2 out of that? And then we're going to also talk about some tips on selling your home quickly. And within all that, we're going to sprinkle in understanding the finances of that, what that process looks like. Because, you at one point you were a buyer. Now that you're selling, you're thinking about buying, you got to understand the intricacies of that process and what that looks like. So I will let Lourdes Fernando take over from here. Again, we're kind of just going to go back and forth. We normally, just as FYI, we normally do like a PowerPoint presentation, but we thought this time, let's make it more conversational. So we're just going to kind of feed off each other as we go through mastering the home selling process. So Lourdes, take it away. Talk to us about what is the market doing, because nobody knows what's happening.
Awesome. So if we just get out of practice mode, we can go ahead, start the recording and get started.
Perfect. We're all
right. And you started the recording?
Yes.
Wonderful. So once again, my name is Lourdes Fernando. I am a local real estate agent here in the Chicagoland area. I'm originally from California, and PCS brought me over to this way. So been doing the business for about 5 years. And so I personally sold 3 homes, my own residence, because every time we would PCS somewhere, we would buy a home. So I understand the intricacies of going in, been there, done that a few times, and then also advise a lot of sellers to do the same. So we are going to talk about what's going on with the market. There is not a lot of inventory across the United States, so most markets are seeing a shortfall with inventory. And typically, this time last year, the numbers of showings are up this year compared to last. And around this time last year is when the interest rates started to like hike up like crazy. So a lot of buyers put their pumps on the brakes. They're like, we're not gonna go through this process right now because the interest rates keep going up. Well, they haven't come down yet. So buyers are now saying like, they're going to go ahead and get started with the process. So we are seeing some markets in some areas. So I'm in the Chicagoland area once again, and there's certain areas that are still really, really, really hot. And there's others where we're able to, get our clients under contract. So we're definitely going to be talking about that. One of the things that you should do is just make sure that your real estate agent is very knowledgeable about the area and what's going on and be able to show you some statistics. So on a national level, we are, like I said, we're very short with inventory. What does that mean for the sellers? That just means that you are going to be getting, hopefully more offers. Depends on how you have it listed and also what it looks like. So we're going to be going over some of those tips today. Okay.
Yeah, and Lourdes, I see that also across the country, right? So we have, a lot of people didn't want to buy homes when the rates were low because, like, oh, it's too competitive. And now the rates are higher and values continue to go up. And I think a part of that has to do as well is that a lot of people that refinance or bought homes where rates were really low, they've kind of like locked themselves in where it's almost like, if I don't like the place, I might just want to keep it. so it's also hemorrhaging the industry. And then there's also a lot of rentals out there, right? People just don't want to let go of properties and we see this everywhere.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's across the board. I do have a lot of friends, a lot of agent friends that are cross country, and they're saying the same exact thing. We're having very similar issues right now. A lot of them are getting really creative because they have a ton of buyers and just have nowhere to put them in. So that's why we felt the need to have this class now, because there's a lot of reservations about, there's no inventory. So
Right.
where do our buyers go? And is this a good time to make your move? Okay. Once again, we are going to go over some staging tips, the repair insights, and strategies on how to sell your home quickly. We did talk about the Chicagoland area. In the last 6 months on average, and this is across the board on a national level, average days on markets have decreased. And then there's still a strong demand for properties. So right now is a good time to sell your property because, once again, we are seeing uptick in activity. I was also looking at some showing time statistics on a national level, and there is way more showings than there was this year, the same time compared to last year. So we still have a lot of people out there looking. Okay.
Wow. And Lourdes, is this just for like single family homes, condos, multi-units? Is it just like one section, or is it just kind of you're seeing it across the board?
Yeah. So it's on the average of the condos, townhomes, multi-units, and single family home. It's all in general. Here in a local area, in the Chicagoland area, it is the multi-units is something that a lot of people, it's became very appealing, and we have very short inventory compared to, a lot of the prices have went up like crazy for multis compared to just last year. So that's probably the most hottest topic, and we're kind of, it's either priced too high and or there's not enough inventory for that.
Right. And that's what we see too. It's like we see offers going crazy where the market rents don't even support the values of these properties. But for some reason, people are still buying them. And I'm just kind of thinking to myself, like, well, what's really going on with that? But like to your point, right? It's a limited inventory. And, one of the top questions I get with this current market is what's happening with interest rates, right? And they're kind of all over the place. Right now, I think they're high. I think they're artificially high. They're gonna calm down a little bit over here the next couple of months. But we predict that next year that rates should drop, and a lot of people are going to refinance into lower rates because that's what's basically been happening over time, right? People that now have like 2.25%, 2.5%. At one point, they had 7% interest rates. So it's just like as time goes on, those opportunities come up. And I think a lot of times what's important to understand is, can you afford what you're purchasing today, right? Not thinking of like, oh, well, if rates drop, maybe potentially, am I going to be able to save money? So kind of put that in your mind as well, is that when, you're in that selling process, what does it look like on my next purchase? And if you're a veteran, your home is assumable, right? So that can drive the price as well, because someone could come in and take a lower interest rate from you. Like if you have a VA home loan with a 2.25% rate, you could potentially sell it to another veteran and they can assume that mortgage at the lower rate from you. Now, that's a whole different process. We'll probably leave that out for today because I know if you go to vahousingeducation.com, you can actually check out some of those videos that we did on VA assumptions, the pros and cons, and really how to leverage that. So, yeah, that's good stuff, Lourdes. And now let's talk about what the selling process looks like for a first-time seller. So they just, they get a good grasp from a all-around perspective.
Yes, definitely. So the very, very first thing that you need to know is what your exit strategy is when you're selling. The very, very first thing that you have to identify is, one, are you going to buy another property? Are you going to do an investment property? Are you going to, take all your proceeds and pay off your debt? Are you going to rent, relocate? It's really important for you to understand what your exit strategy is going to be. So if you are looking to purchase another property, I would definitely see what you qualify for and at least identify an area and that there are homes available. Because once again, the market is very tight. David, do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, I mean, well, the other thing too, I guess, Lourdes, is that if somebody's looking to sell their home, they might not be looking to buy another place, which then it really opens it up. And like to your point earlier, is that there is just that could be a tremendous opportunity to really cash in, right? And the other piece to that too, when you're thinking about the selling part, like I mentioned earlier, is that you really got to get pre-qualified again, right? Because you're going to be a new buyer, and a lot of times people will be like, "Well, I bought a home a couple years ago. I know the process." No. It changes constantly, right? And short of giving a blood sample to a lender, you don't want to be in a spot where you're selling your home, you're under contract, you're buying another property, but your purchase falls through, right? Nobody wants to be in that spot. And, we've come across that when we've helped other people that, work with other folks in the industry, and we've jumped into that to help them kind of rescue that, right? So it's that, I would say it's more of that. It's, as a whole, you need to understand both your living situation, the market, and your finances, because you can use equity out of the sale of your property in order to buy the next place. A lot of people don't realize that you can still basically pre-qualify with you would basically be contingent on the sale of your property. So you can sell a property in the morning and buy in the afternoon without any issues, right? Because the title company is going to have the money. They're going to transfer it to another title company, and you can close as if you had that money, right? So we can already count that for you. And especially if you're using your VA home loan benefits, people will be like, well, my benefits already locked in my property. How can I get pre-approved for another property? It's the same thing. It's going to be contingent on the sale of your property, which you could do in the morning and close in the afternoon on your new purchase as if you never had a VA home loan. So you have your full entitlement. Because guys, if you don't know, especially if you bought a home a couple of years ago, they used to have limits on how much you can use on your VA home loan. Well, they've gotten rid of that, right? So that if you don't have a outstanding VA home loan at the time of closing, there's no limit. No matter if you're buying a condo, single family, 2 to 4 unit building, you want to buy a $2 million multi-unit in Lincoln Park with zero money down, guess what? As long as you're eligible and qualified, you can do that, right? And we actually have seen a lot of that as well, where people will sell their single family homes and go into multi-units.
Yeah, definitely. There's been so many times, David, where we sold and we bought the same day. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah. And they made it a lot easier too now. So
yeah, it yeah, it was yeah, it was fun, packing up in the morning and unpacking later in the day. I learned some strategies, which we'll cover in a second, on what to do just to ease the process and not be too crazy about it. There are some tricks that we're gonna mention, but we'll go ahead and dive more deeper into this subject. The process, really is one, identify your goals. Two, is to make sure that you find a qualified real estate agent who knows the local market. Okay. I can't stress that enough.
Now, Lourdes,
Because
what is a qualified?
Ugh.
Actually, you know what? What is a qualified realtor? Because I don't know how to say this. I work with folks across the country, right? And you meet all different types of people. But what are some like characteristics, or would be like if you talk with a realtor and they talk about X or they explain this, they'd be like, oh, they have a good insight into the industry.
Yeah, so one of the good indicators is they have the market data and analysis that they're showing you, that they're adequately showing you apples to apples as far as comparison for your home. So if you have a two-story house that's relatively new, and they're showing you new construction, or they're showing you homes that don't look anything like your house, that's an indication that that's probably not going to be the best. We've come across, and we've even lost some listings where another agent said that they can get $40,000 more, and I'm like, but I'm showing you the comparables here. That's unrealistic. They're just saying that to get the listing. So it's really important for them to explain to you the entire process, and then to sit down and say, okay, these are what's selling. Let's, be realistic with everything. And then also showing them, if they will, and we'll talk about this a little bit later as well, but showing clients like, hey, if you do a few modifications to the property, then you can get X amount of more money for your property just by doing a few things. We're currently doing that with one of our sellers right now, and he'll get about $100,000 more for about $20,000 worth of work. So when we're looking at the numbers on a big scale, like that's what you have to do. Another thing too is pricing right the first time around is critical. Right now, what we're seeing is, houses that are overpriced, and then we go to the appraisal process, and we're having a big issue with that. So that's another thing that pricing your house is right. And I've been in a situation too where we received an offer. I think it was like 40,000 above, but we received total about 80,000 above what we listed it for. And there was no way that we can get this other high valuation. So being able to talk to your sellers about that, or talk to, your agent should be talking to you, the sellers, about that. Because if you do go way, way, way high and you accept this high offer, you're going to have issues when the appraisal comes. That's when we ask for things like appraisal gap waivers and what have you, just to protect you. And if they're not there, then that's an offer that I would suggest not taking. So just having an agent that knows how to price it right, how to properly advise you throughout the process. And these are some of the questions that you can ask. What do you do in a multiple offer situation? How do you handle that? What's your experience in that? What's an appraisal gap waiver? What terms are you going to do for me, or how can you make this a very easy process for me to move out of here? There's certain things like rent backs, which I do for a lot of my sellers, especially
What's
if
a
they're
rent
moving
back?
out of state. Yeah, so a rent back is where you can rent the house back for about 7 days, 3 weeks, a month, whatever time and however time you need to make that transition out into your next property or to the next state. So we've had one, the longest one I think I've had was a 3-week rent back.
Oh.
And that was after we closed on the property, they were able to submit offers and take off that contingency of a home sale contingency and be able to make that transition a lot smoother. So so that's another thing, and just make sure that's one of your strategies to let your agent know, so that they can put that in the remarks, so that they know that this is a rent back situation, so that you're not left kind of like me. What I did was like move from one house into the next, and it was crazy. It was not the most ideal situation, although it was just 10 blocks away, so it wasn't horrible. But that was not fun.
No, I can't imagine. And Lourdes,
Captain
let me ask you, do people come and ask you like, hey, I saw on Zillow, this is what my property's worth. Can you weigh in on, how do you actually know the value of your property, right? Like
Sure.
how do you do that?
Well, I'm glad you asked, David, because I get that a lot too. Redfin, Zillow, all these, it's an algorithm, and even the CEO of Zillow said that they wouldn't trust that rhythm
Yeah.
or the algorithm that they have going. So it's based on what has sold in your area. They start off with the 1 mile radius from the home. And in certain areas, there's different type of neighborhoods, school districts, rural area, non. So there's a lot of factors that go in that. And then they look to see what properties are like your subject property. They are looking at the condition of it, like square footage, rooms above grade. So in certain areas, they have, I know I was from California, so I didn't know what a basement was until I moved this way. But they have basements in the Midwest and certain other states. But so they do count that differently, above grade versus below grade. So there's a lot of factors. There's probably about 20 to 25 factors that go in with the appraiser
Yeah.
evaluates. So the more spot on. So when your agent is showing you these comparables, you just make sure that they look similar to yours. I had a client that I represented as a seller. They moved to Texas, and then she sent me the comparable market analysis
Oh yeah.
of what her agent. Oh, you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. All of a sudden I had
I was like,
flashbacks.
what?
Yeah.
I'm like, what the heck
Yes,
is this? And then because
flashbacks.
I had trained her, because we also
Right.
purchased her house that we sold. So I trained her on how to how to read a CMA. So she was able to
Which
tell her
is
agent, like,
a competitive market analysis, right? So that's kind of, and Lourdes, I want to just touch on something. You mentioned basements and above grade. I can't tell you how many times we look at listings. They'll be like, oh, it's a 4 bedroom, 3 bathroom home, and they price it as that.
yep.
I'll get the contract. We order the appraisal, and it comes in $100,000 short. And then
Yep.
people are like, what do you mean it came in 100,000 short? And we're looking at the appraisal, and it says it's a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, because they thought that they can count, or I don't know if they think it, or if it's like a whatever. You can't use the basement as like the bedrooms, bathrooms as part of the value. Now, if other properties have finished basements, you have a finished basement, okay, that can count, but not just like willy-nilly adding stuff in. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for saying that, because even when we're talking to our buyers, and some listing agents will say, and a lot of them surprisingly don't know how to run CMAs. I
Right.
should take that back, but they're no, okay, they don't know how to accurately run this. I'm like, how do I say it nicely? So just like I said, make sure that you make sure it looks like your property, and in the same area, same district, school districts, and if there's no comparables, then you can go out instead of 6 months to 9 months, and then we look at that, and then out to a year, all the way up to 2 years. We can go back, but you have to go through these steps, because the more accurate you are with the price, then the more appealing it is going to be for the market. Also, you're not going to have these issues with the appraisal. So there's a lot of time that you can save during that process.
Right.
You know,
And yeah, and I'm with you on that piece. And so Lourdes, let me ask you a question with the preparing to sell. Is it normal, and if you're helping someone sell a property, can the same agent help them buy a property?
if it's in the same area, yeah. So I have a lot of, with my clients, if that's the case, I do give a discount in what I charge them for on the listing side, and then I help them find also um, their home. Now, if they are going to somewhere else, then typically I'll call and I'll interview agents on their behalf, and just make sure that it's going to be a good fit, because there's some that may not know how to especially if it's a VA home loan, they don't know how to sell the VA home loan.
Right.
They don't know, how it's different from the other loan product. It's that transitioning part is very important, that they do have a good agent. I was on the phone probably every day when a client decided not to go with one of my recommendations and went with someone else. And she was like, never again, Lourdes, never again. I'm paying attention to you because I know that, you're going to screen these people out. And it was, I was like, can I call this person? But I couldn't, because I'm not licensed in that state. And I was like, oh my gosh. So it can be a process. And David and I, we talk to a lot of agents all around the United States. So we do have a good little system that we got going for qualified agents.
Right. Then that's a
Um,
tough part, is like, how do you find those folks on your own? Because it's like lending and lenders will promise the world and then they don't really understand it. And I would say that's probably one of the top things that people face when in that home selling or home buying process, or a combination, like in this case, right, is to find professionals that understand what you're trying to go through, have your best interests at heart, and really just advise you. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who makes that decision, not the realtor, not the lender. It's you have to know what your situation is in order to be
yeah,
able to do that, right?
for sure. Yeah. Another thing about the selling process, too, is you do have to prepare your home. um, that is something that we often look past, and we say our home is perfect. I remember the first time I sold my house, my real estate agent came in and she told me to put half my house inside the garage, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I'm like, "This is a nice house," and she's like, "No, this is a little dining nook area. I want you to put a table here." I'm like, "Where am I supposed to get a table?" So it was a folding table that I put out and made it look like I made it work. So it's important for you, if you have an office set up in your dining area, that you take your office down and you put a dining table there. So you want to just make sure that all the spaces are properly advertised. So when people walk into your house, they can envision their furniture there, take all your
Right.
pictures down, do everything that you need to do. So it is a process. We're going to dive deep into that in the next segment, but we definitely, that's something that you want to do is just to make sure that you prepare for that. Another thing um, is being able to market your property through multiple channels. Open houses is great. So just make sure, that when you're interviewing your agent, you can say, do you do open houses? And if they don't do open houses, red flag. You want to make sure that you get so many people in your house so that it's in times to just make sure, if you're getting ready to list your property, that you have availability within the first week or two, to be out of the house during, normal showing times. And during the week, it's usually after 4 p.m. To right about until 8. And then on the weekends, usually all day on the weekends, just to make sure that you get enough people to come into your property and see that. And then the other step is also in the selling process is knowing how to review offers. So once again, that's something that you're going to lean really, really heavy on your team of advisors, on your real estate agent. Are they calling the lenders just to make sure that this person's qualified? Have you worked with this lending institution before with that lender? Have you have rapport with that other agent? What are the terms, and what do the terms really mean? If they're going in as is, does this agent really go in as is? So definitely look at that, because there's been some situations where, that's not the case. Being able, knowing where to bend, and as far as, during the negotiation process, what's going to make the most sense for you, is always the highest offer, the best offer. Knowing how to look at and to really determine what is what. And then also your transition out. That is probably the biggest puzzle piece. A lot of people right before closing, they already, I'm going to have movers come this day. I'm, making sure everything is good to go. We've had some sellers that weren't told that they had to be out before closing. So when we're trying to do the final walkthrough,
Wow.
they're scrambling. So once again, just knowing the process from start to finish. And, we always advise, our sellers, okay, if they're still living in the property, we want to make sure that a couple of days before the scheduled closing, and we're going to be in contact with the agents just to make sure that if they're going to close earlier, then we can accommodate that. So we just want to make sure everything is clean, all the repairs are made in a timely manner, and things like that. So knowing the process is very important. David, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, and I would say making sure one I'm at a loss sometimes for how to say things, but when someone's making an offer on your home, it's probably one of the most important parts of the transaction because it's a domino effect. If something were to go, if that's agent doesn't know, call the other lender, make sure that they have all their documents, at least do their due diligence, because you don't want a deal to fall apart right before you trying to buy another place. We've seen it, Lourdes and I have just seen it too many times. It's always the small things that gets folks. So if agents have like an MRP certification, home finance resource certification, at least they've taken time to put in.
What is the MRP certification, David?
It's the Military Relocation Professional Certification offered by the National Association of Realtors. So I'm a national instructor and an author for that book as well, or a collaborator for that book. And, we teach agents like all the things that go into how do you make an offer stronger for a veteran? Because that's another big complaint I get from folks is that my VA loan, I mean, that's more from a buy side, like, oh, my VA home loans don't get accepted. And then we'll talk to sellers, folks, and they'll be like, well, the VA home loan isn't competitive. And we're like, walk us through what you're thinking, right? And this is why, again, knowing those products, knowing these small things, putting time in actually adds to your toolkit. So then when you're presenting offers, they can go through it with you correctly. And to your point, Lourdes, like if someone goes 80,000 over asking price, but doesn't put in an appraisal waiver, then guess what? When the appraisal comes back, you're renegotiating. So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
why did we even get there? But there's other times where people are like, well, I just had this happen where a client's like, I'm going to spend $30,000 more than what the market is. I know that. I don't care. And they did an appraisal waiver, even on a VA home loan. So you can do them. It's just like you have to know that you can do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but that's also like to do with the condition of a property. But that's another thing, we didn't address here is that an agent that knows the products is going to be able to look at a home and say, well, you know what, this home is actually going to meet all the requirements. We don't see any issues. Or, hey, this is an FHA or VA loan. Hey, there's these couple things that are need to get done. Hey, it might cost $1,000. Are you willing to do that? Right. And if the answer is yes, why not? Right. Because it makes the home more marketable. It's like you're talking about it's almost like people need to declutter, right? And it's just put a fresh coat of paint on because it makes it feel like it's going to be a new home, right? It's a nice smell, declutter. So yeah, but like those are the small things that people are just like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then like the home sits longer than it should. But anyways, that's my rant on that. But let's roll into
and we're going to cover
but yeah, let's roll into staging tips of
Yes.
what really goes into that, because like I don't even have a clue.
That is my favorite. So I am just an HGTV. Like, I grew up on that. I love staging, creating space, a flow, and the whole nine. So believe it or not, but this can impact your value on your home. If there's like the furniture is too big for a space and it's very cramped and you're kind of like walking kind of like some way, when we go in there, we'd be like, if you can, get rid of it. And it's rather to have an open space or put it in like I said, half of my house was in my garage. I think I think half of my house was in the garage, and we didn't have a lot of stuff because we were, moving around from place to place to place when we PCS. So we couldn't have a lot of stuff at that point. And then we moved into a bigger house and got a lot more stuff. But so just making sure that that staging is important. Declutter and depersonalize. Make sure everything looks like a staged home. That would be your goal, is to make sure that it looks like a professional came in here and staged it. So deep clutter, the closets, people open up the closets. So just make sure you don't stuff everything in the closet and be like, okay, it's out of the room, because people are going to open that. The cabinets closest, the most accessible, meaning as soon as the first two cabinets, they're going to open the cabinets to see if, the space, the Lazy Susans are going to open that, because that's a great sell. So just make sure in your cabinets, you also declutter as much as you can. Depersonalize. People walk in and they've seen big pictures of a wedding, and they see this, and they see baby pictures, and they see all these things. You would have to take all that down, and then maybe go to what I've done with some of my listings who had a ton of like a collage of like, of their whole family and everything like that. We'll take that off, and we'll just go get a very cheap, nice painting from Ross and put it up for $40, and that way it's nice and it's very neutral, and people can see themselves living in there.
Right. And security.
And then,
it's like an OPSEC, right? Operational security is that you don't want those. I wouldn't feel comfortable personally, right? Leaving all my family pictures up, people coming into your home, right? That just kind of adds.
And I cannot tell you how many times people look at these pictures. I'm like, oh, that's a really nice family. And like, oh, and I'm like, oh, like, let's look at,
right.
let's look at some of these defects that I'm seeing. Water leaks, like, so they can be distracting for sure. And then there's that. And then, deep clean was the other one too. Depersonalize, declutter, deep clean. That has been a really, really, really big turnoff for a lot of our clients, is the amount of how messy the property is. So and maybe gunk from like, and I'm guilty of this all the time, but my above the microwave, there's all that gunk on my white cabinets that I have to like occasionally, like every month, go wipe it down. Just, it bothers me. But just make sure that it looks really, really clean, because people are going to pay attention to that. And also, if there is any rodents, make sure you take care of that before, make sure that there's no droppings of anything, because people pay attention to that, and it's a big deterrent. So just make sure that it is clean and that you create a very neutral environment. People like to see that.
Wow.
Okay. And then light bulbs, make sure you change out your light bulbs. If there's some that are out, go over there and change them. And if there's different color light bulbs, just go ahead and change those all out. And just make sure that they're all one color. The super bright, you want to put the super bright. So if you have the ones that are the softer tone, take those off and put the super bright ones, just so that when they turn on the lights, they can see as much light, because people love to see light. Let's see. Curb appeal is very, very important. Curb appeal is huge. They're pulling up to the home, and I can't tell you how many times the outside looks bad, where my clients don't even want to see the inside. If the outside looks as bad, we don't want to see the inside. So that's very important for you to clean out make sure that you have you do the lawn, and you do whatever you need to do. If you live in a condo and maybe there's some trash outside or some trash in the common halls, like, pick it up. Like, I know it's not your job or anything like that, but just make sure that it looks presentable, because people do pay attention to the littlest details, especially when they're walking up to the house. And then one property that one of our clients, it was a multiple offers that we won. We walked up to that house, and immediately she just lit up, because it was just laid out so beautifully. There was a wishing well over here. Like, it was just so nice. she just lit up, and that's the type of effect that you want. You want your buyers to come and say, this is a place for me. Rearrange furniture to create an open and spacious feel. When I go in, I am, people don't, not that they don't like it sometimes, but I mean, I'm like, I go in and let's create the most space. Let's create this flow. If there's any, like, there's some sunken living rooms, we have put couches there so that people don't trip as soon as they walk in. We have them put the booties on and to put, or take their shoes off. We don't want any obstructions or people falling in your home. So things like that, we want to make sure we properly label. If there's any type of hazard, then we put those in the listings as well. And then we do have use natural light. Also, we did speak about that. Natural light is key. And then consider hiring a professional stager, or just make sure that your agent is knowledgeable in that. Another staging tip too, that's not that I didn't mention, is the smell of a property. We've walked in and somebody just put out a candle and it smells amazing, or there's like air fresheners and it just smells so good. There's so many people that come in and that smell, that feel it. And we even went into one property, which my clients ended up getting, and then they were playing music on their their little Google device, and it was like they walk in, it was like, oh my gosh, like this is it, and it was so nicely decorated, and it smelled good, and it was very clean, and everything was right. They had a ton of offers, and we were very competitive. We didn't win the first time around, but we were able to close on that property because I was very persistent with them and what have you. But it was a really nice house, and they got all the feels that they needed to. And you just want to make sure that buyers also do that.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. So thanks for that, Lourdes. We did get a question though from somebody before we move into the next section. Is what happens if you don't pay property taxes? Because let's say you have a VA disability on that. Will that affect the sale of the property? Which is actually a really good question.
Very
because
good question. Mm-hmm.
This definitely comes up, and then attorneys don't know what to do. Actually, almost nobody knows what to do. So what happens is that your tax exemption is delayed, right? Because it's always going to be the prior tax year. From what I've seen, is that the veteran normally, or the seller normally gives a tax credit to the buyers for the time that they lived in the property. Well, in this case, like let's say you were to close today on a property in Cook County, you won't have a tax assessment until the second installment of next year. So I've seen zero credits given to buyers because they don't have to pay taxes for another year. Right. And then the veteran then has to wait for their taxes to kick in for their next property to get the exemption. So the seller passes on the zero tax exemption until the homestead is taken off. But then the veteran that is buying their new property in Illinois will then have to wait for their taxes to be zero to the following year's second installment. I don't know. What have you seen, Lourdes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've seen two ways where we give no credit and no credit. And then I've seen it where you do have to put a holdback until the taxes are reassessed. Now, I represented a seller, and we had that situation where like $4,000 was set aside in an escrow account just in case his exemption did not go through. So once the exemption went through, he had to reapply that coming year. So in Illinois, the taxes are in the rears. So this is specific to Illinois. So we have others. What they did is they held the money. And then when he went to apply, his new address was on that form. And we had to call the VA to get the old one, reapply for it to be valid. So that was something when you sell your property before you change your address, get your VA disability rating letter dated that day that you sell. Do not forget that before
That's
you change
important.
your address. That's huge,
That is
because they weren't going to
huge.
give him that. They weren't going to give him that. And it
Wow.
was $4,000 that he was going to lose. So just make sure as a seller, if they are holding that money back, you have to apply the following year so that you can get that exemption to the day that you closed. Also, change that date before you change your address. Make sure you pull your disability letters. So if you have more questions
Wow.
about that, you can reach out to me, because if not, you will be held liable for that, or you have to call the VA. It was horrible.
Wow.
Like, I spent like probably 3 days fighting aggressively for my veteran seller, because that was a lot of money. Actually, I think it was 6,000. It wasn't 4, it was 6,000.
Wow.
And I'm fighting, and he was like, I don't know what to do, Lourdes. What am I supposed to do? And I was like, there has to be a way. I was calling all my friends to be, they're like, Lourdes, we can't do this. Like, this is impossible. So we were
Right.
able to make it happen. And I just kept telling him to call, speak to someone different. And then finally he was able to get the old property address with the effective date. So
Wow.
that's very important.
Yeah. And I guess if you have the property tax exemption and you sell to another veteran that has the property tax exemption, that's probably the easiest thing to do, because by the time the taxes get assessed, they're zero again. So it's kind of a win-win.
Kind of a win-win, but they do have to apply.
They do.
If
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
do not
Do not
apply,
forget. Do not forget.
they do not apply. Yeah,
And
they
that
have
had
to
to
apply.
happen.
Yes.
Yep. So that's the big thing. And you have to watch out when it comes out. And so just remember, we're using Illinois as a good example, is that in Cook County, it's the second installment. All the other counties, it's the first. So don't miss that window. And every place is different across the country. Okay. Illinois has a state law, but a lot of places have county laws, right? So you got to know when those taxes are they paid in arrears, or they paid current. Like, that's a whole separate class in itself. But let's move on
Which
to
we have.
yeah.
We have it in our
Yep.
Classes.
Yeah, if you go on vahousingeducation.com, you can check out our free classes that go over these things as well. So let's talk about what repairs add value to the property. So if Lourdes said, if I'm the only one that has a pool in my area, is that going to add value?
Well, for me, all day long, I'll buy your house.
Of course. But
Now, no. Typically, a lot of people add an above grade pool. So it just depends on what kind of pool. If it's underground, it adds value. If it's above grade, just those circular ones, even if it has a really nice deck, adds zero value.
They are fun.
So yeah, they are fun, but they don't add any value to your house. So certain things do not. And if there's not a lot of houses in your area that do have pools, then it, even if it's underground, it's not going to add a tremendous amount. There are some things that do add big value to your homes. That's kitchen renovations, things like updating countertops, installing new appliances. Those is something, those little things that you can do. We have a listing right now. We painted the cabinets and then changed the hardware, and they look amazing, like really, really good. We kept the granite countertops because it had it. We changed the floors because the floors were all messed up, and it looks amazing. We just put in some new appliances, and I mean, just night and day from what it was. And it wasn't terribly bad before, but that's going to just add that much more value since now we're going for a higher valuation. So that is something that definitely, and it doesn't have to be brand new cabinets. You can always get them painted and make them look really nice. There's also this laminate stuff. If you have laminate countertops, there's this laminate pill and stick stuff. Oh my God, I used so much of it in my old house, but you can use that on your counters. A lot of the stuff you can YouTube, which I'm the YouTube queen now. My little sticky tiles that I have everywhere. I'm going a little nuts with it and I need to stop. But there's little things that you can do to get you that valuation. You also have bathroom remodels is huge. So if you wanna put money, that's definitely gonna bring you tenfold. Include modern fixtures, update the tile. that really attracts buyers. We do have a lot of people that a lot of people are taking out the tubs and putting in a shower, but a lot of people are nowadays, they want at least one tub in the house. It doesn't necessarily have to be the master bathroom, but at least one tub in the house to bathe their children and or to soak in, because we're more active in an active culture now than before. So just make sure if you are updating the bathroom, you still keep a tub. A lot of people just take it out and have showers now, but just make sure you have that. And then,
and that's a good point. Yeah, because and some of this stuff too can seem expensive. But like Laura said, there's a lot of people who do DIY projects that do really well. They've really made it a lot easier to do these projects yourself, right? Or you go find some friends that know how to do these things, because you can knock out a bathroom in the weekend, right? And they already sell everything already pre-tiled. You can put it up. You don't have to sit there with like the little whatever those things are that you have to match up and grade everything. Like, they made it really easy these days. So you can make a place look really nice for not that much. But I mean, but like you said, if it adds in a tremendous value, right? You put in a $30,000 pool and there's no pools around you, it's adding zero. You've just washed 30,000. You put $2,000-$3,000 into a bathroom, you can get a lot more out of that. Plus, you can sell your place faster, like you said, Lord. It's like it's just and again, I think a lot of this goes back to, we've talked about it a couple times now. Paint, fresh. Like everything, you paint the house. You could do it yourself. Hopefully, you know how to paint. Right. Otherwise, hire a professional. Otherwise, there are going to be streaks that can cause the opposite problem. So I guess that's another thing too, Lourdes, is like, you have to be very careful, right? Because if you don't do the job correctly, you can end up spending more money by having it redone. And if a job is done poorly, people can look at that and go, well, this is built cheap. I don't want to live here. So just, I guess that's what we should also just maybe mention here is like, when you're doing this, do it right. Otherwise, you're doing it again, or you're going to discourage people from buying.
Exactly. And if they see corners cut, then they're going to say, okay, they cut corners here. Like, where else are they going to cut corners? So
we've seen gut rehabs people walk away from because they just made it look pretty, but it was completely just like the guts of it weren't updated, which is mind blowing.
Lipstick on a pig. Yep. We see those quite often, for sure. Yeah. Another thing to be mindful of is, if you do have energy efficient upgrades, solar panels, not in this area, but certain areas, California, they're huge. Things like that is very appealing to buyers. We are in a more economic conscious society. So little things like smart smart thermostats, smart appliances, even the smart keypads on the doors, that's super appealing to buyers. That's like one of the things that they love to see in a home, because that's one less thing that they have to do. Cameras, security cameras, Ring doorbells, things of that nature. People love that, and especially if it's being kept at the property. So that's another thing that they really like. Very, very, very important. If you know that there's any structural issues, if there's any damages, mold, if there's anything that that is not okay, get it fixed. Roof repairs, foundation issues, those things are critical. I know you've mentioned this too. We want to make sure that this is available to all loan products. That way you can get the most. So paint for VA and FHA loans, those will be called out during the appraisal. Just get that done before you list your property. It's going to save you a lot of time. And then also there's some agents that will go in and be like, hey, this has peeling paint, this has this. There might be an issue if the seller doesn't want to fix it. And we're not able to negotiate that, especially if it's a competitive market. We know that that's going to be kind of like where we won't be able to go in as is because of certain issues. So that is something that you want to make sure that you fix. And And if you know that there's a problem, there was a leak in one of the listings, we got that fixed. We're like, let's get this fixed before we hit market, because we don't want, last thing we want is them to go through the final walkthrough, an appraisal, or a home inspection and find this leak. And now it's going to be worse for us. So let's just go ahead and get that knocked out. And that way it's something that, the new buyers don't have to deal with. And then we can do that and properly disclose that so that they know that it's done. And if it's warrantable, then you can pass that warranty over to them, especially if it's a roof leak or something like that.
Yeah, that's pretty serious stuff, because that can come up on an appraisal. It just opens up a can of worms, and for a couple $100 at times, you can make your life a lot easier, right? So just kind of, if you don't have the money necessarily, use a credit card. Like, this is the one time where I'm like, it's gonna make a big effect on the sale of your property. So you just want to, again, it's an experienced person is going to walk you through how that process works on that. So those are all good tips on value. And again, it's also going to be very specific on where you're at, right? Because you might have really nice bathrooms, but you might just have to do something small to the kitchen, or it might be just something to do with the outside of your home, right? It could be small things. So let's roll into, and I want to mention something with this, is how to sell your home quickly. I want to touch on one thing that we breezed over, which is condos. When you're selling a condo, it is a lot more complex than people think. It's not like a single family home or a multi-unit. A condo, right? You have a condo association. They have their own budget. They have their own decks and bylaws, rules and regulations. So knowing how to market that property and understanding how a condo actually functions, and is it going to meet the eligibility requirements for, let's say, a conventional FHA or VA, because we see that a lot on the buy side, right? Where veterans are like, I can't buy this condo because it's not VA approved, and my lender says it can't be done. We're over here saying you could buy any condo you want, literally anyone. If it gets denied, fine, we'll submit a waiver. And people are like, what are you even talking about? Right. So there's a lot of things that you play into knowing the market, the products. Again, I always harp on that because you kind of have to be a master of a lot of things in this business. So that's one of the things that helps you with how to sell your home quickly. I just took Lourdes's thunder on that one, but it wasn't part of what we're going to talk about. So Lourdes, talk to us about what goes into selling your home quickly.
Yes. So we all want that. Selling your home quickly. Ironically, the two times that we sold our houses here in Chicago, and so that was crazy. Whole nother story, but they were both within 24 hours. But and it was because we follow, all these guidelines. I just make sure everything is looking good. I even put my in-laws and at the time and my dogs into a hotel. Like, that's how serious I was both of the times. And I did that because I didn't want people to smell dogs. I did that because I didn't want the inconvenience of having them in and out. I'm out working all day, so I didn't want that to happen. So I strategically did that because the first week that your house is on the market is the most critical week that's on market. We want it to look exactly like the pictures. So the pictures have to be amazing. And then we want to make sure that there's a virtual walkthrough where they can actually go in and tour it online. A high percentage, and it's probably more than that, but it's the 80 to 90% of people look at homes online before they even get in their car to see this property. So I can't tell you, probably about 95% of my buyers send me the address on, Zillows or whatever. They'll send me the address and I look at it immediately. They already saw all the pictures. They know everything. I'm just going in there and seeing if there's any additional remarks. So we want to make sure that it looks exactly like the pictures, if not better. We want the smells, the music, and everything like that when they walk in.
I love it.
So this is what you really have to make sure that you do and it is very, very, very important. Price your home competitively. So we want to get you the most amount of money for your home. If we price above the market, we're not going to get that many people come out, because agents like myself will be like, oh no, this is way overpriced. Like, let's not even go there, because if it's this overpriced, then if we submit a lower offer, they're not going to accept it, and they're going to be offended and what have you. So it's going to sit for a little bit longer. So we do want to make sure that the price is it's priced competitively based on the market analysis and on recent sales, not based on anything other than that. Zillow, Redfin do not even, it can be a guide, but when you actually have that comparative market analysis, that's what you have to follow. Once again, enhancing the curb appeal, making sure that's a strong first impression. I know we said that, but it's very, very, very important. Utilizing professional photography. If your agent wants to take pictures with their phones, not good. And it
might help the buyer, but not the seller.
It will not.
Right.
It will not.
I've seen it.
It is. Yeah, I even see like upside down picture. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, yeah. So no, get a professional to come in there and take pictures, and just make sure that is the agent will order the real estate agent will order the pictures. And virtual tours is a must. You want people to walk in. If they're not interested in seeing your property, they're going to do that little virtual walkthrough. And if they don't like the layout, don't come to my house. We want them to make sure that they get that virtual walkthrough. It's a must with all my listings, just to make sure that they can see that virtually. Videos is another very important thing that you want to market as well. Let's see. The next thing is be flexible with showings. Oh my goodness, this is important. We represent a lot of buyers, and I can't tell you how many times we won't even see a property because it's not available. Where we'll go see properties that are available. We're making offers on those properties that are available. Make sure, once again, if you are listing a property, that you're available to show the property for that first week. You're very flexible with time. If you're working from home, see if you can go, to someone else's house and work in their space, just to make your house available for showings, and you will get your home sold quickly. The more time that they have to wait to see your property, one, they may not see it, the interest is going to be lost, and you just want to build this fire and just make sure that as many people is in your property. There has been times where I'm like, we have to write an offer right now. I'm going to Starbucks to write this offer because there's a line of people trying to see this house, and this house is going to go quick. And I just want to make sure that we get our offer in. We want that same sense of urgency. So make your house available. And then we already talked about the staging and open houses. And then you want to make sure that you work closely with the real estate agent to implement effective market strategies. Once again, you ask them, how are you going to market my property? What are you going to do differently? What are you going to do, pretty much? And then consider incentives like covering closing costs or offering a home warranty. So if you know that there is something, say that the refrigerator ice maker is broken and then the dishwasher doesn't work, then to avoid things happening during the home inspection and or appraisal, we can always say refrigerator sold as is, dishwasher doesn't work, being sold as is, which can avoid so much. Sometimes they won't even mark that on the contract. So when the appraiser goes in and notices that it's not working or not there, they're not gonna call you out on that. So very important for you to if you can't fix it, maybe it's a budget issue or something like that, you can't fix it. Another thing is we can say being sold as is, but we'll offer a home warranty or something like that, so that we can still get that valuation without, having too much, or we'll provide a credit of $400 or something like that for that specific item. So just making sure that that is being upfront and people know about it. That way, during the process, it's not going to come up because they already know. um, 'cause
Yeah.
that is that is a holdup, and we're just telling you everything that we see. And I know David
Right.
probably hears and he sees a lot of the stuff, because sometimes they take the lender off when we're going through the inspections, and sometimes they just keep them
Yes.
on. So he reads these things like, what in the world? What's
Sometimes,
going on?
Lourdes, I mean, well, the moral of the story is that a lot goes into it, right? And especially in today's market where rates are a little bit higher, you don't want to pass up able and willing buyers, one. And if you pass up on the wrong offer, and then you might want to go back to them a week later, they might be under contract on a new property. And again, the pool may be big, but people, there's a lot of times they're just looking like window shopping. So because they're waiting for something to happen, right? So just be very careful of that, as this whole entire selling process takes a professional or professionals to get done. So just coordinate with the folks that know how to do this. You guys can check us out on, if you want to get a hold of us, just go to vahousingeducation.com, and you actually could reach out to both of us with any questions around this, just because it's you hear a lot of bad stories. You don't often hear the good ones because people aren't upset, right? That's kind of like what happens in the industry as it follows when it comes to that, and just knowing these tips on the staging process. This also helps you when you talk to a realtor, because you'll see what they bring up to you as a concern or not. Because if they're just going through things really fast, not explaining something, Lourdes, I mean, that's a red flag. Yeah. So, yeah. And so if you guys have any additional questions, we're going to post this on vahousingeducation.com. So thank you for everyone that joined us today. Can't thank you enough. Thanks for supporting us. We'll be doing these types of webinars. I do them every second Tuesday of the month. We do a general VA housing presentation for buyers across the country. It's the same one every month, because people are always coming into the market or thinking about buying. And then every fourth Tuesday of the month, like today, we do a specialty class. Like today, we did a seller's class. Last week, we did a first-time condos, hey, I want to purchase a condo. How does that work? And then again, you can check out on our website when the next one. It's free to register. And then we'll also be doing them live like we're doing them now. So anything else that you want to add to this, Lourdes?
Just go ahead and we are going to be adding this to our website, and then we are going to add a seller's guide checklist there as well. That way you have something tangible that you can actually check off, the questions, what to ask, how to research. Let's see, research and hire qualified real estate agents, determine your selling goals, prepare your home sale, gather. There's just a ton of just little guides step by step just to help you out. So we are going to be adding that to our website after we put this into the training for you to have. But thank you so much, David, for providing this platform. We're really excited to help educate our sellers, and then also buyers as well. And I don't think I learned how to actually be a buyer girl. I purchased 2 homes not knowing the entire process until I became a real estate agent. Can you believe that? I would just sign here and I'm all like, okay, like, woohoo, I just bought a home.
That's so funny.
And that's why we have these classes to educate our buyers and just make sure that they feel supported and they know what to do.
That's awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. And then we'll be in touch soon. Again, check out vahousingeducation.com to get a hold of us. And we'll also be including that seller's guide when we do that. So you guys have a great evening. We'll talk soon.